You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
You know, they told me I got to do a cold open, and I did one yesterday where I talked about it being cold in here. And I was trying to think of what I should do today for a cold open, and I thought I should sing a Coldplay song. But then I realized that I don't actually know any effing Coldplay songs because it's Coldplay. It's all yellow. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. No echo today. Okay. We are going to talk about Miss Marvel. Yes, the series has been going on pretty well. We are 4 episodes in, and I got to say, I'm liking it a lot more than I thought I was going to, and I like it for reasons I didn't expect. So, yeah, we are going to talk about that in just a moment. Yeah. I don't know. I had a mindset I was going to go somewhere else for a minute, but I think I lost track. I think the Coldplay thing threw me off. Because in the middle of it, I actually remembered one of the Coldplay songs and it kind of threw me off. So, hey, Cool Gamer, good to see you. Please chime in at any point if you got any questions, comments, and please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Paradise, there's another one here. Paradise. The D train is derailed. The D train derails more often than I'd like to admit. The fact that I can actually stay on track for an hour a day is pretty amazing, really, especially when I don't have any co-host. When I got someone to talk to, it's a little easier. But when it's just me and I got to like wing it for an hour, it could get ugly. It really could. The fact that it really hasn't is amazing. So, Miss Marvel. I'm going to admit up front that it was not the series I was looking forward to the most. Or really at all. There was a point where in my 20s and 30s, definitely in my 20s, some in my 30s, I was buying just about every Marvel comic that came out. I had a pull list at a comic shop that literally said, all Marvel. And then somewhere it started to change. I started buying more DC, and then I just didn't buy as many comics, and then catch up. So by the time Miss Marvel came around, and I'm pointing here because she's right there on the cover. I really wasn't really reading a lot of the books, so I didn't really have that much experience with her. When her book first came out, I didn't grab it. And so she's not a character that I was really excited about having on screen. I mean, there are so many characters in the Marvel Universe that I think of before that because, I started reading comics when I was 5. I read Cap America 189 was the first comic I ever read when I was a kid. So Cap, Falcon, just Daredevil, there's so many characters that I fell in love with. So I had all the 70s and I went back into the 60s and then the 80s and the 90s. So by the time you get to some of the characters in the 2000s, it's like, well, we've never seen Darkhawk. Nova still hasn't hit the screen. All these characters that have been around longer. But I think of Miss Marvel, I think of Carol Danvers, because that's who I first got to know. So I don't think of her as Captain Marvel. I think of Captain Marvel as Marvel, the original Captain Marvel guy. So now that we're getting to some of the newer characters, my excitement isn't as high because I didn't grow up with them. So I will admit that this was not high on my list, and it was coming out at the same time as Kenobi. So I'm like, well, Kenobi's going to get my attention. But, I'll give Miss Marvel a try. And I watched the first episode. And I believe my review was, it's a good show, but it's not meant for me. And I'll stick to that because that first show was very much geared towards younger audiences, not a 52-year-old man. That was geared towards the TikTok generation, stuff like that. And I'm fine with that. I don't expect every show to be geared towards me. I don't expect it to, cater to my whims and stuff. This isn't my character, So some people, this is the character that brought them into comics. For some people, this is the character they identify with the most. And great. And this show was for them. And I think that is awesome. That said, though, I could see the intelligence and the craftsmanship of the series. I could see that it was a really well written and directed and acted series, and I had highlights in it. I really like the family. Her dad is awesome. I love her dad. Her mom is cool. Her brother is cool. I mean, her Bruno and Nakia and stuff like that. They're great characters. But again, it's like the Spider-Man movies. They're not my favorite. Do I think they're good? Yeah, they're good. But they're kind of John Hughes films, and I've never been a John Hughes guy. I didn't grow up loving Pretty in Pink and Better Off Dead is awesome. But, I didn't grow up Breakfast Club and stuff like that. I watched them. I thought they were good, but they weren't my favorites. I didn't rush out to see a John Hughes film. So the Spider-Man movies, as a love affair to the John Hughes films, didn't click with me as much as other movies. So this was also in that same vein to me. So I watched the first episode and I liked it. But like I said, it didn't really feel like it was geared towards me. The second episode, I liked a little better. I guess maybe the origin story is always a little awkward, and I'm not a big fan of the whole lying to your parents thing, which is kind of a YA thing. It's like I like the Harry Potter movies, but the fact that rarely, if ever, do they go to parents and go, hey, this is going on. What should we do? They try to figure it out on their own. And I don't necessarily think that's what you should be teaching kids. If you have an adult that you can trust, you go to them and you get their help. And, and a lot of the stuff that these kids and these things have to deal with are way beyond what they should be dealing with. So, that's part of the YA thing that I'm not a big fan of. And I saw that in the first episode. With episode 2, though, I could see some of the universe being built. I could see her understanding her powers, things like that. And that really started getting more attention. But also what I started getting, which I didn't expect, was this deep dive into the culture behind these characters. You know, the Muslim Pakistani culture that I sadly don't know much about. You know, I mean, I have some experience with, but I've not really spent a lot of time learning about that culture. And this series is doing a remarkable job of bringing that culture to life. And I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. I am tuning in now more for that than I am the story of Kamala Khan. You know, the wedding. I thought the wedding was amazing. Um, you know, the fact that they ask 3 times if you'll take this, you know, they take this bride, you take this man. You know, that to me makes a lot of sense, because there's the old tradition of you ask somebody 3 times, and or if they have, you know, answer 3 times, then it has to be the truth, you know, and stuff like that. So I thought that was fascinating. And the little dance number, which I don't know why a dance number is popping up so often now in these shows. The Boys had one. The Magicians had one. Legion, when that was on, had one. The dance numbers and the musical numbers seem to be becoming bigger and bigger. But this one made just a ton of sense for cultural wise, and also it was so good. And the music choices in this, none of the music have I ever heard before, but I'm really enjoying it. And that's like I said, that's the part that I didn't really expect, was to really enjoy the cultural aspect of this series. And with the 4th episode, you know, we visit Karachi, which is, again, another city that it's a city I don't know much about. You know, I didn't know it was called the City of Lights. I thought Paris was the City of Lights, but, you know, Karachi, the City of Lights. And another site posted this, but whenever American media, whether it's television or film, whenever they take us to a South Asian country or an African country or whatever, they tend to put kind of a yellow filter on it to give it a foreign feel, I guess. And they didn't here. They didn't put any kind of filter on it. So it didn't feel, it felt like another city. So you got to kind of explore the city a little more. And I liked that a lot. I really appreciated that, you know, and some of the terminology being used and getting to see the city. You know, again, a lot of that's just been a lot of fun, you know, or there's a Chinese restaurant in the middle of Karachi. And it's like, you know, you don't think about that, but of course there's a Chinese restaurant in Karachi. Why wouldn't there be? But if you don't have any experience with Karachi, then you don't think about that, you know? I love that. I love the introduction of the Red Daggers, the society. Now, we don't know much about them, but, you know, they've got their own little secret hideout, which was very cool in the way that it was behind a stove in the Chinese kitchen. And, you know, or the fact that she couldn't go into the restaurant, the other restaurant, because she was wearing jeans. You know, here, unless it's a fancy dress place, we don't think about that. But jeans aren't part of the standard attire over there. Makes sense, you know? And it's just so many different things that you don't think about. But there was also so much common stuff that it was just really neat, you know? So I'm really enjoying the cultural aspect of the series. And also the partition. The way they talk about the partition. I don't know a lot of people who had ever heard of the partition before, myself included, you know. But it makes a lot of sense. It fits in with the history I have been taught, but they never look at, England pulling out of that area. They never talk about that from the residents of that area, their point of view, what they had to go through, and how suddenly everybody's scrambling to be in different parts of the country because that's how it's being divided. That's not something we're taught over here, taught in our history books and stuff, which again is a shame, because that is an important part of human history, and we just gloss over it, and it takes a show from Marvel to bring it to people's attention. That's just amazing to me, that this traumatic event in a lot of people's lives, most people in the US never even heard of. So that's the type of things I'm really enjoying in the show. The acting is great. All of the actors they're bringing in, just really good stuff. The guy that played Waleed, the Red Dagger kid, Aramis Knight. He's from, what show is he on? Oh, I'll look that up real quick, because I know he's on something that I was just. Into the Badlands. Yeah, he's from Into the Badlands. But you got Farhan Akhtar, who's a famous Bollywood actor. He's doing Waleed, which is a small role, but, is important. And you just have a lot of these really good actors coming in. The grandma, Nani, she is awesome. I thought she was just brilliant. And I loved every scene she was in. I thought she just kind of stole the show. And then her interactions with Muniba, and just talking about their history and stuff. So, again, these weren't the things I expected to be a fan of going into the show. I expected, we'll get some backstory on Miss Marvel. We'll meet whatever her bad guys are going to be. It'll tie into the Captain Marvel next movie. Okay, that's what we're getting. And instead, I'm more fascinated with what's going on with the family. And, like I said, it's really well done. So I know a lot of people out there aren't really connecting to the show, or, there's a lot of backlash, which I don't know. I don't get. Not every show is supposed to be for you, but you can still find good things in it. There's shows I don't like, but I'm not going to take the time to go out and talk badly about a show unless I'm doing it for this. But there are a lot of people that go out there just to talk badly about a show because it doesn't star somebody that they wanted to star. It's not, the way they talk bad about the Captain Marvel movie because they didn't particularly like Brie Larson for some reason. Was the Captain Marvel movie great? Was it good? I liked it. Liked it well enough. I could have used a little bit different. It could have been better, but it's definitely not the worst Marvel movie. It's definitely not the worst superhero movie. I have no problem with it. I like Brie Larson. I look forward to seeing what they do with the second movie. So, and then you add in Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan and the Jinn. Are they going to be part of it? The clandestine, the unseen. There's a lot of questions there. So, but the first thing that stands out to me is just the way they're handling the cultural stuff. And I think it's brilliant. I think that there's a lot of connections I didn't expect to care about are what I'm looking forward to each week now. I want to know what's going on with Nani. I want to know, the trail of stars that led her back to the train. Maybe that's not what we thought it was. There's a lot of good stuff there. Now we're going to talk more about it, get more into the actual character and the history they bring up. But I did want to talk about the culture first because, like I said, that to me is the strong thing coming out in the beginning. So we're going to take our first quick commercial break, and we will come back right after this.
Thanks for tuning into The Experience. Help us out and hit subscribe over on YouTube and click the bell when you do. Need some help? Scan the QR code in the bottom corner.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We are talking about Miss Marvel today. And if you're a Miss Marvel fan, you might want to check out our pick of the week. This is Champions number 1. It is the Dynamic Forces exclusive cover. It's got Miss Marvel, Miles Morales, Viv Vision, Nova, Amadeus Cho as the Awesome Hulk, and Cyclops. And this came out a little while ago, but this is the John Cassidy cover. There's 2 versions. There's that one, and I happen to have gotten both. I also have the black and white version or the uncolored version. They come with certificates of authenticity, and you can get them. These are exclusive to Dynamic Forces. It's over there. JD just put the link in the chat. You can still get them on there if you want to pick up your own copy. If not, there are other versions of the Champions that came out, and you can probably find those at your local comic shop. So look for them. It's a good series. And again, it's Miss Marvel, so pretty cool. That's why it's the pick of the week. And I know my pick of the weeks tend to go a little longer than a week, but I put up new books when I get new books that I think are cool. So check it out. All right, coming up after our show is What's in the Box with Miss Jen, which is one of my favorite shows on the network because I love the idea that she just randomly walks out and grabs a box from the warehouse and opens it up and tries to sell whatever's in it, because I'm waiting for that day that they find something in it that is hard to, that they don't expect. Like, a dead rat crawled in there and died. Would she try to sell the rat? According to the confines of the show, she should try to sell the rat. And if she gets it signed, would it then be valuable? Who signs it? So, but you want to stick around because you never know what's going to be. Could be Jenna's lunch that she pulls in by accident. So stick around for What's in the Box coming up right after this show. All right, guys, let's get back talking to Miss Marvel. Now, one of the things that's Pizza Rat should sign it. Absolutely. Yes. Good call there, JD. By the way, JD, I'm curious if you've ever talked to John after doing the commercial for that show. Claim Dead Rat. There you go. Jess, we already got a seller. Tell Miss Jen we've got a buyer for her dead rat already. I just wonder if you've ever talked to John after doing that commercial and see what he thinks of you calling him possibly a ghost. Okay. And does he wear the mutton chops to go with it like he's an old 1890 sea captain?
No, but that's why I imagined that he might be a ghost because of the mutton chops.
Yep. It takes some balls to do mutton chops nowadays. It does. So it's a little Sebastian Shaw of him. Old school Sebastian Shaw. All right. So Miss Marvel. One of the things that a lot of people have been talking about is the change in her origin. Never would have guessed the ghost of Martin Van Buren was a comic collector. Martin Van Buren is the perfect pull there, Jeff. I'm impressed. I was thinking like the ghost in Mrs. Muir, but Martin Van Buren. We got to get him to dress up that way on President's Day. JD, see if you can make that happen. Or maybe superimpose his head on the Martin Van Buren picture. Okay, so if you're not familiar with Miss Marvel, she's actually an Inhuman. There was a point, something called the Terrigen Bomb, where Black Bolt or Blackagar Boltigan, maybe one of the worst names in comic book history. Thank you, Jack Kirby. Set off the Terrigen Bomb, and it transformed a lot of people into Inhumans, people who had the DNA in their system, and the Terrigen Mist just exposed them. And Miss Marvel was one of the people that came out of it with powers. Cameron, who we met in the second episode, is also someone who gets Inhuman powers. He becomes a being of light, and I have a feeling that's going to happen in the series. But being that he's a Nor or a Jinn, but in the comics, she gets her powers that way, and is basically stretching powers like Mr. Fantastic. Now, we knew they were changing it going into this series, and that they were possibly moving it more towards a cosmic origin. I mean, I guess the Inhumans are cosmic, but this is more of a more tied into Captain Marvel. But then again, the Inhumans were humans that were experimented on by the Kree, and Miss Marvel was part of the Kree for a while, so it was connected anyway. So they're just kind of cutting out the Terrigen Mist aspect of it and changing her powers to be a little less Mr. Fantastic and a little more Green Lantern. Because their plan is not to introduce Green Lantern, being they don't own the character, but they are going to introduce Mr. Fantastic, which they technically did in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So it makes sense they don't want to have two people with the exact same power coming out around the same time. Unless it's a hero and a villain, then they do that all the time. I mean, that's kind of the motif. You know, hey, we got a super soldier. Well, let's put him up against a super soldier. Hey, we got a guy in an armored suit. Let's put him up against a guy in an armored suit. This guy can shrink. This guy can shrink. That's pretty much, you know, the first movie of anybody's thing. You know, Thor's a god. Let's put him against Loki, another god. But actually having heroes with the same powers, let's not try. Let's keep away from that. So I could see why they're changing it. But what they're doing here is, I thought it would be the Negabands, which tie into Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel. You know, when he was in the comics, he had these Negabands on that were Kree relics. And he would be trapped in the negative zone, and Rick Jones found the other pair, and they would hit them together and swap. And Rick would go to the negative zone, and Captain Marvel would come out and save the day, and then he'd go back to the negative zone, and Rick would come out and be an annoying teenager again. It's amazing all the heroes that Rick Jones hooked up with for a while. But that should be a comic all on its own. The Adventures of Rick Jones. But so I thought they were going that direction, and that maybe the bands were found, like maybe the family moved into Marvel's old house. You know, the Dr. Larson that we meet in Captain Marvel. Maybe they move into her old house or stuff in the attic, and that's where she finds the bands. But no, they've tied this into her history, into her family lineage, and the fact that she is a descendant of the clandestine, or who also go by the unseen, or the Jinn. And there's a great line in the 4th episode where Waleed kind of puts the reveal that they're descendants of Jinn into place. And it's not that they're actually genies. You know, they're not the Jinn. It's not like Robin Williams' character from Aladdin. Cosmic powers, itty bitty living space. You know, it's not that guy. What it is, he said that had Thor showed up in that area, he would have been considered a Jinn. Because anything magical or anything more powerful than what they expected would have been considered a Jinn, or, you know, godlike, or, you know, that's what their culture was. So the fact that they're called the Jinn just means that they have powers and stuff more than humans. So they were considered magical beings. So that kind of opens the door to them being cosmic entities. And again, I kind of thought, okay, we're going to stay with the Kree. Maybe they're descendants of Kree. Maybe they're a Kree sleeper cell. Like in Greece, they would have been demigods. Yes, exactly. Had Hercules landed in South Asia, then he would have been a Jinn instead of a demigod. So I thought that they were maybe a Kree sleeper cell. But what we also learn is that they're from Nor, which is this land of light, basically, which exists on like a parallel plane to Earth, and that the bands can open it up, but if it does so, then basically it will wipe out Earth because they exist on the same parallel plane. If they connect, it'll destroy Earth, which, other than Cameron, the rest of the clandestine don't seem to mind. They seem to be perfectly okay with that. And it's nice that Cameron is concerned, but then Cameron's a descendant as well. But so we're still not sure exactly what their background is then, because what is this parallel plane, the Nor, and is there only one? Is there multiples? I mean, I don't think we're dealing with quite the same thing as the multiverse. The multiverse is everything, multiple universes. This seems to be existing just on a slightly different wavelength. I need Neil deGrasse Tyson to come help me explain this, I think. But the concept is basically it's all part of the same universe, but on a different wavelength. So it's not a multiverse. It's just a parallel plane. And multiverse is everything, everywhere, all at once. Cute. So that doesn't really explain who they are or where they came from. Now, we did see when they found the bangle back in 100 years ago, it was on a blue arm. So again, that makes you think Kree. But you have to keep in mind that, A, the Kree aren't the only blue-skinned race in the galaxy. Yondu's people are blue. There's some others. But they are one of the main ones. But then not all Kree are blue. Some are pink. Like Yon-Rogg. Minerva was blue. Yon-Rogg was pink. So, is there still a Kree connection? Which, to me, I kind of feel like there should be, because then it ties her, Miss Marvel, into Captain Marvel better. And I think that is the main goal, is to connect these universes. But they also seem to be kind of dancing away from that with the whole Jinn idea, or the clandestine or the unseen. So I'm really curious where they're going to go with that. And also why Marvel decided to use these different names that they have characters connected to, but they don't, but they're not connected. The unseen is one group in the Marvel Universe. The clandestine is a completely different group, which oddly enough has a Jinn in it. And that's a whole Alan Davis came up with. It was like a 12-issue series. And that was all descendants of basically this guy that would live forever named Adam and a Jinn. And the descendants all had powers. It's a very strange series. And they haven't done much with it since. But that was the clandestine. So this is a little different, but they're using the name. So I don't know where they're going with this. That's the interesting thing, is that it doesn't seem obvious. And we're still 2 episodes to go. You believe how fast these go? Because it seems like this series just started, and we're already 4 episodes in, with only 2 left. So we're over halfway. We're into the final third. So we got the penultimate episode coming out Wednesday, and then the final, So will this tie more strongly into the Captain Marvel universe? I think it will. JD says, I see the MCU is mining the comics. They dig in, find something cool, and they're like, oh, hey, nice. I'll put this with this over here, I think. Yeah, I can see them doing that. Or every once in a while, they'll take a name and they'll connect the dots, which is a name that's used completely. Moon Knight. Arthur Harrow, the Ethan Hawke's character in Moon Knight, completely different than he is in the comics. Not the same character at all, but they still use the name. So I get that. Yeah, I think they do that because they have these names. They can go, oh, well, we've been using these names for years. There are copyright, blah, blah, blah. So that makes sense that they do that. But it also seems weird. It's like, well, you've got a whole history for the clandestine. You have these characters. You could do a clandestine story if you absolutely wanted to. So why burn the name up now? So, but I'm really fascinated to see what is going to be the tie, what the Jinn really are. Will they be Kree after all? I mean, there's a lot of things in these shows. I think we try to make them more complicated than they are. I look at Kenobi, and it's like everybody knew Reva was going to be one of the younglings. It seemed obvious from the beginning, and that's what it was. That's what paid off. But I think sometimes the simplest answer is the way they go. They're not trying to be super complicated. They're just trying to tell a good story. And sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it's not. So it wouldn't surprise me still if they end up descendants of Kree, because I think that ties best into the Captain Marvel and the Marvels story. They could be connected to the Skrulls. They could be, maybe they're descendants of Skrulls and Kree that found a way to live together. And I don't know. There's possibility there. But we got at least another episode or two before I think we're going to get the answers. And the show took us on some interesting places. So we'll talk about that in just a couple more minutes as we wrap up. But let's go ahead and take our final commercial break. We will be right back.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Are you a comic creator? Are you a publisher? Do you make a comic book product? Do you own a retail store? Do you do something I haven't thought of? Who are you and what do you do? Let us know by advertising on the experience and invite our viewers to patronize your product. Message the EXP on social media or email us the_EXP@yahoo.com for more details.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline show here on The Experience. We are talking Miss Marvel. The fourth episode dropped this week, and well, it was a little strange for me because it felt very different in a lot of ways. And I realized that we had picked up and left New Jersey and went to Karachi. But in doing so, it's like we suddenly had an entirely new cast. Only Kamala and her mom were in the series, in the episode. They didn't flash back. We never checked back in to see what was going on with Dad or with the newlyweds or what Bruno was up to. You know, none of it. We never checked back what the DODC was doing. Nothing. Just suddenly she's on a plane with her sloth baby pillow, and they're in Karachi. We've got her cousins. We have her nanny, and we meet the Red Dagger people. And so she's got kind of this new guy that maybe she's interested in, and it's like, so no Cameron. I mean, it's just like suddenly a whole new world. And with the way it ends, I don't know. Do you think the Karachi Tourism Board paid for the episode? No, but they probably could have asked for some cash. And then the way the episode ends, with her basically, you know, I mean, we get a lot of good fight scenes. We see her really getting to use her powers, getting a better feel for them. We also get to see the Red Dagger in action, which is cool. And we get to see the clandestine fighting. But there's that moment at the end where her, you know, the dagger strikes her bauble or bangle, and she ends up what first seemed like it was just a vision. So suddenly she's in the past. I'm shocked you aren't talking about what happened 45 years ago today. It's comic history at its finest. What happened 45 years ago today, Kyle? I feel like I'm being set up. Kyle does this a lot. He comes on, he says, I can't believe you're not talking about this, or I can't believe you're not talking about that. And it's like, well, Kyle, you could do your own show. I'm thinking it's Spider-Man Day. Okay. It's Spider-Man Day.
No, I was wrong. That was June 5th, 1962. So that was not 45. That was 50 years ago.
Okay, so what's today then?
That's a good question. Maybe Kyle will enlighten us. If he's going to throw a wrench right in the middle of the show.
Yep. So the series, the episode ends with her being teleported back in time to the partition, and her, you know, she's standing at the train, the last train out of Karachi. Really, Kyle? Talk about trying to get me going down a rabbit hole. So the episode ends with her in the past. And I think we're going to see her using her abilities to guide her infant or her young grandmother back to her dad, because I don't think Aisha, her great-grandmother, actually had the ability to use the bangle the way that Kamala does. So I don't think she could have done the Path of Stars that would have brought her back to her father. So it does seem to me like it's going to have to be Kamala that actually guides her grandmother back, which is kind of interesting, because then it means that she was always destined to go back in the past. You know, this isn't something that the Time Variance Authority is going to have to pop up and deal with. But I'll be honest, I didn't expect time travel to pop up in this series either. That's kind of a shock. But and there's a couple other things that we haven't seen yet either. Like, there's talk of a second bangle. And will she find that? Because in all the clips of her, she's only ever wearing one. So will that become a thing? Will that be something in a future season, maybe? But they do keep talking about there's supposed to be two. So, yeah, there's a lot they've got set up. And I'm kind of curious how they're going to start paying it off. So they got 2 episodes left. And Marvel does this all the time. Every time we get to this point, we say, how are they possibly going to wrap all this up? But, and that, you know, and we're kind of at that point now where it's like, okay, they've got the clandestine they got to deal with, and the grandma, and I mean, the second bangle, she still needs her costume. She got the blue material, which looks like it's going to be part of it. But, yeah. So I'm just going to ignore JD on that one. All right. So let's mention what Kyle wanted to bring up. So years ago, Kiss had their blood printed into a comic, and it was released 45 years ago. That's not the strangest thing or the most interesting thing to be put into Comic Ink. I think that would be the ashes of Mark Grunwald that got put into the print run for the Squadron Supreme trade paperback. But it is pretty interesting that they did that, because I don't think they'd be able to do it now, because that's really unsanitary. But yeah, so Kiss did that. It was a big publicity thing, and they've been popping up in comics for a while. Kiss in comics isn't really that bizarre anymore. I mean, because a lot of different companies did it. Dark Horse did it for a while. They did it through McFarlane with the Psycho Circus. Marvel did it. Dynamite has done it. I think Dynamite had the Kiss comics last. I don't know where the license is now. But, yeah, Kiss pops up a lot in comics. So it's not that big a deal. But, yeah, the blood in there is interesting. And so that was 45 years ago. I would have been 7, and I think I did get a copy of it. I don't know if I had one that was officially had the blood in it, though. But so, all right, we have the penultimate episodes of The Boys coming out Friday, and then next week we have penultimate episode of Miss Marvel. Also, we have Only Murderers in the Building Season 2 is now out. And The Umbrella Academy. I have not had a chance to watch either of those, but I will, and we'll start covering those once I wrap up these 2 series, because we got a lot we've been talking about. We just wrapped up Kenobi. So, and I'm hoping we can actually get some guests on again soon. I like having guests. They bring a nice, different approach to the show. So we're going to do that. But I used to clone an army of Paul Stanleys. I dressed as Paul Stanley for Halloween when I was 10 years old. But being as tall as I was as a kid, most people thought I was too old to trick or treat at 10. So, but I had the full face makeup, the costume, the unitard with the big open chest, and the cape with the stars on it. Which is funny because he wasn't my favorite. My favorite was Peter Criss, but my sister, who did my makeup, didn't think she could do the Catman makeup as well as she could do Star Child, so I ended up as Paul Stanley. Looking forward to getting into Only Murderers again. Yeah, I love that show. I thought it was brilliant. I love the fact they did an entire silent episode, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they do this season. Kyle says, definitely not the weirdest, but most historically rock and roll. Okay. Hey, Richard, good to see you. So, all right, we are going to wrap it up there. Thank you guys for putting me up with me this week. I am getting better. I know I missed all of last week, or most of last week. I'm still on the IV, and will be probably into early next week. But I am definitely getting better, coming back around. So we'll be here next week for all the shows, and keep covering these things. So if you guys got any topics you want me to cover, you know, if you see in something like, hey, we need to know more about this character. This one's going to come up in this movie. Can we know more about that? Just let me know. Drop me a line. Hit me up through the EXP, and you can help guide the show. So please hit the like and subscribe buttons. That helps us out a lot. You know, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. We're also on Instagram and a bunch of other stuff. Follow us everywhere. And stick around for Miss Jen. We all want to see if there's going to be a dead rat in the box. And if so, Jeff has already got a bid on it. So remember that. And I'll see you guys next week. Have a great one. Good night, everybody.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.